Get in the know. Nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
I'm not really in the business of talking about, my play publicly or trying to evaluate it to everybody. I think it's about, the next play. Where are you going from here? Not so much midseason. I don't like, and I think I've said this before in previous years, I don't really like looking back at where we've been. I'm very focused on looking forward to where we're going. And so that's really where I want to spend my energy and time in the season, and then, when you get to retirement, maybe we can talk about looking back as to where you've been.
That, of course, Vikings red hot quarterback Kirk Cousins. Welcome in to the latest edition of Purple Access. Zolgad, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my former partner on the Viking beat, Chip Scoggins. And, of course, Declan Goff is the executive producer. All right, Chip Scoggins, let's start there. Kirk Cousins, what do you make of what we're seeing? How sustainable do you think that this is? And how much different do you feel about the Vikings after they beat Seattle than you did a week ago when we talked after a very tough loss to the Cardinals?
Judd, at the beginning of the year, if I would have told you that Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins were watching film together and getting along and praising each other, and Kirk would be playing the best football of his career after what we saw in training camp, I don't know how you explain it. I don't know how you explain. I thought it was going to be a disaster. I got to be honest. I thought it was going to be an absolute disaster based on the tension that was there to start the season after the vaccination stuff. And so the only thing I can figure is, and I think what both Zimmer and the players are saying, I think you have to take them at their word, that Cousins has been different in terms of his personality, the way he's getting along with guys, the way he's trying to invest in being a leader. And I do think there's something to be said about finally having some comfort in a system, one system, and not constantly changing coordinators, head coaches, all that. I mean, he's been in the system now 3 years, and I just think he's settled into a good spot. And that's what I wrote Sunday after watching the game. It just feels like him and Clint Kubiak are in a good place together, like a good rhythm, a good understanding, a good familiarity. So I think it's all those things combined, but I'll be the first to admit, I did not see this coming based on the way training camp was and everything that was happening.
No, I agree completely, because training camp and the rift between Mike and Kirk felt huge at that time. And it certainly felt like this team was off the tracks. And look, they are still, unfortunately for them, 1-2 because of a couple of difficult road losses to start the season. But you know what? Here's my theory with Kirk, because we have seen Kirk play great before. Like, this is not the first time. This is the most I felt like he was comfortable, but we have seen him go through periods of playing really well, often the last 2 years in October. My theory on Kirk is this. It's 2 C's. The first C is Kirk Cousins is not lazy, but he gets comfortable. And I think when he's comfortable, that's not good, because he comes into a season and he's like, yeah, I'm good and we'll be fine. And this guy will lead and that guy will lead. And I might chime in too. And then the last 2 years, he's gotten off to what? Bad Septembers. October turns it on because he's challenged. Now people are like, you're not that good. And he's like, yes, I am. I'll show you. So my theory is this. The challenge this time came around because of the vaccination or non-vax story, because we all basically wrote and said, and Mike almost came out and said it. This guy doesn't really care about the team. Like, he's more worried about. So I think what we're seeing now is Kirk Cousins, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and most people probably are, is better when he's pissed off. And when he's told, dude, you clearly don't care about your teammates. You don't care about your team. You are doing this for the check. Because he's a talented dude. He's got talent.
Yeah.
I think Kirk being challenged is the best thing. Now, that doesn't explain the development of the relationship between Mike and Kirk, but I think it does explain the fire he's playing with, which we have not seen till October the last 2 years.
Do you think the relationship he has with Zimmer now, and it's clear Zimmer, like, every time he gets a chance, he praises his leadership. Yeah. You talked again yesterday about sitting down with them and how it's good for them, and they do it every week, and it's 45 minutes. Do you think there was an intermediary there, or do you think that was Zimmer saying, you know what? if I'm going to last, if I'm going to make it, I better get on. Even if we have totally different personalities, me and the quarterback, I better find common ground here and make it, figure out a way to make it work, because what's happening right now is not working.
So we talked about this on Mackie and Judd as well. And Mike is so stubborn, and he's not rare. Football coaches are naturally stubborn. So to say that somebody got to him, I don't know if that's accurate, but I will say this. And starting with back-to-back defeats probably helped as well. Because, Mike in the press conferences got really low key for Mike. He was defending his kicker. Yesterday, there was a key thing that unless I'm wrong and forgetting, I don't think I've ever seen him give a handful of veterans a day off from practice. He's rested Dalvin before, but he gave a fairly substantial group of veterans a day off. And I think this might be the realization on Mike's part that if I don't get this right, I'm fired. I think and from Kirk's standpoint, I think in his mind, he is now, because that salary cap hit for 2022, unmanageable. I think in Kirk's mind, he knows I'm sort of planning for a contract here, and he wants one more big contract. So I think that there's a lot of self-serving going on here, but that's not a bad thing because it's dovetailing together to help the team.
Yeah, no, and from Cousins' perspective, I think you're probably right that there was a lot thrown at him in training camp. And he probably felt like, no, wait a second, I'm not the only unvaccinated guy on here, but I became the face of it.
Right.
And he's taken all the criticism, and maybe it did motivate him. Maybe that's part of this. I do think, though, a lot of it goes back to just being in the system for 3 years and having a familiarity with it and having a really good relationship with Kubiak. I mean, the fact that, he spent so much time with him as his quarterback coach and now as offense coordinator, it just feels like they're in a good rhythm together. And Judd, we can't leave this out. His line's been pretty darn good the last 2 weeks. So game one, it was a disaster.
Yep.
We've said if the line can play good, he's an accurate passer. He's going to play well. But the thing that's interesting, and I think this goes back to familiarity and probably just the confidence he's playing with. Near the beginning of last year, where the interceptions, just the turnovers, and just kind of the reckless nature that he was throwing some. Now he had 200 passes without an interception, and he's taking care of the ball. And I go back to the third down play, the third down throw to KJ Osborne, where he's backpedaling. And I asked him about that after the game. I said, "Is that play right there kind of show the confidence that you're playing with right now?" And he said, you can look at it two ways. He said, if you're trying to protect the ball, maybe you just eat that and take the sack. But he saw a flash, and he felt like KJ would make a play, and so he put it out there. So I don't know that the result of that play would have been the same a year ago or 2 years ago.
First of all, that ball, and this, as far as the on the field, what's changed about Kirk, the most important thing is this: that ball does not get out. He doesn't throw that ball.
Correct.
He's holding that ball, and he either gets sacked or fumbles. The difference to me in the fact that the line looks far improved in these past two games, especially compared to the debacle in week one. The difference to me is, and I don't know if Kubiak got to Kirk. I don't know if Kirk finally woke up here. It's the time that it takes him to deliver the football. It's a different world. Like, he's always held on. In fact, I think Gessling.
I was going to bring that up.
Bottom seven in getting the ball out in 2020, top 7 this year. That will make your line look good.
Yeah. Ben, my colleague, had that stat, and I don't know if that's, again, is that something he's doing purposeful, or is that just feeling more comfortable with everything? So you're automatically going to play faster if you're comfortable. And Zimmer mentioned that after game. He's on Sunday. He said he just looks like he's playing very fast right now. And again, I don't know if that's if Kirk came to realizations like, okay, my protection is not great, I got to get rid of the ball, or is it, hey, I'm just more kind of natural that, hey, I feel comfortable with the system, so I'm playing a lot faster, and I'm just know what this offense inside and out now. It's probably both. It might be both. I don't know.
I'd love to know, though, because that to me is the most on the field important thing. That is the most important
100%,
thing.
yeah.
Because he's got the tools. He is, as you said, an accurate passer. He's got a really good arm. The throw to Osborne was fit into a window where he has ordinarily not been comfortable, which I thought was a great play. That's one of, I really believe that throw to Osborne is one of the most impressive plays that he has made since he signed here. Just
he's backpedaling off the back foot. Yeah.
And he's going to get smacked.
Yeah.
Like he's going to get destroyed, and he still delivers it. And it's fit into a tight window, and it's a hell of a pass.
Well, and he was asked after the game, he said, "Did you even see him?" And he said, "Well, you see a flash of color. You see a flash of purple."
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, he might, I don't know if he's embellishing much, but it happened so fast and the guy's right on top of him. He's probably not, that's probably what he saw. Just, okay. And he knows where the guy's going to be. He knows where Osborne's going to be. And so, but that, I mean, it just speaks to just his confidence right now that he can make that play, that he didn't even try it and he didn't hold it and take the sack. And so it is interesting that Zimmer called that the best offensive performance in his 8 years here. And the running back wasn't there.
Yeah, and you know what? Mattison had a bunch of touches. So it's not like that position didn't play a very instrumental role in that game.
Yeah.
But it felt like in watching that game, forget the box score for a second, it felt like that was Kirk's offense unquestioned. And a lot of times it feels, and this is, I will say it every time because it feels like I'm denigrating Dalvin, which I'm not. He's a marvelous player. Okay. So this is not to criticize Dalvin Cook, and what Dalvin Cook brings is a special skill set. That being said, I really felt like what we watched offensively Sunday was the template for how you have a successful offensive game plan.
Yeah. The trick will be when Dalvin's healthy, how do you marry him with what we saw Sunday? Absolutely. And I don't know how that looks because what was Mattison's touches? I can't even remember. I mean, he had a lot. Yeah. So it's not like you're going to have any more touches. Mm-hmm. But I think Mattison was targeted like 8 times, Judge, because he was one of the 4 guys that had at least 8 targets. So a lot of it came in the pass too. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because of the way Kirk is playing, and you're seeing the results of it. If they can figure out a way so it's not Dalvin's offense, right? That it's Kirk and Dalvin's offense, you know. And
well, or just Kirk and because I mean Jefferson and Thielen and Dalvin all are incredibly important. I just feel like it's more effective. You have a better opportunity to look like they did on Sunday when the quarterback is running it, and it really felt like he was running it, and everything was working around him.
You know, the amazing thing about that too, Judd, is that's not the Legion of Boom defense that we're so used to. No. I couldn't believe how wide open Jefferson and those receivers were getting in their secondary. Sometimes there was not a defensive back within 7 yards of them. It was, you know, and I don't want to take away from the Vikings offense because they did that. They ran the, you know, but boy, Seattle's defense is not. I don't know that Russell Wilson's not the same Russell Wilson that we're used to seeing in terms of scrambling and improvising the way he always has. I don't know that offense is going to be able to overcome that defense for them.
According to your point about that, according to Next Gen Stats, Justin Jefferson averaged 4.16 yards of separation from his closest defender.
And I don't know what average is, but that's a lot. Yeah, I don't know what the average is.
You should be blanketing Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
No, that Seattle team definitely had flaws. They've got some big flaws. I don't think they're a playoff team.
Not with that defense. I don't think so. I mean, it just looked too easy at times in the secondary for the Vikings.
To answer your question, Alexander Mattison had 26 rushing attempts. He was targeted 8 times and caught 6, 32 touches. So so that position still played an instrumental role.
And it's a lot of touches. Yeah, it felt different because it's I mean, obviously with Dalvin, you're just sort of expecting big, long, you know, busted out type runs. But Mattison, he proved that he can do the job if you give him he just kind of wears on it. He's a physical runner. We'll see if Dalvin comes back this week, but it'll be interesting to see once he's back in there how Kubiak approaches this. Because I just feel like the way they came out with that scripted was beautiful. I mean, that's exactly how you want that offense to function.
2 consecutive weeks, Chip.
They put together a plan that just looked, and it was all kinds of different passes. What Kirk does well, the bootlegs, you saw screens, you saw just a real nice blend and mix of plays. And I mean, they scripted it. It was impressive.
The script against the Cardinals was great too. What impressed me this time was they got through the scripted plays and still had success. And the second half, and this is where it gets a little tricky, but offensively, I thought, starting with the opening drive of the third quarter when the Vikings got the ball, that was a thing of beauty. Because if I'm not mistaken, they ate up 8+ minutes of the third quarter. And the defense, which had not been playing well, was all of a sudden just off the field, which was great. So that's the tricky thing, though, in this upcoming game, because Cleveland is a far better team right now than the Seahawks. And the tricky thing is, I know they didn't give up points in the second half, and I know that they hung on and got some blitzes and things. But Cleveland's got a really good offensive line.
Yeah.
I am very disappointed in the run defense so far, because there's no excuse for why they are giving up 100+ yards per game. I am afraid the pass defense might just not be that good.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too, how one penalty can change a game. And go back to that game Sunday. They're down 17-7. Seattle gets a 3-and-out. The third down was a sack of Cousins. They're going to have to punt. Seattle's going to have really good field position, but they get that defensive holding call. Vikings use that next life to go down and score, and I think they scored points on their next 4 possessions, and the game was over. Not to say they still wouldn't have won the game, but if Seattle gets that ball back winning 17-7 and they put more points on the board, now all of a sudden, it might be a different game. They were. I mean, that first half was not good at all for the defense, and it just felt like Seattle could run the ball when they wanted to with Carson. The crowd noise and pass rush wasn't getting to Russell Wilson. But for whatever reason, it changed. Obviously, the time of possession flipped really dramatically towards the Vikings, but I do think their pass rush got revved up, and we started to see what that pass rush would look like at home with Everson Griffin gave him a spark, and they got to Russell Wilson, and he couldn't scramble like it normally does. The run defense should be better. I mean, it just should. And now they're facing the second best running game in the NFL with Chubb and who's the other one?
Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah, so Chubb and Hunt. That's the thing. If they can't stop the run, and you have to commit, bring one of those safeties down. You can't play too high. Then you're just going to open up things up for that pass game. So.
Yeah, this is going to be a really intriguing game going back to the Stefanski-Zim matchup. The fact that the Browns' offensive line is really good. I will say this, you know what? I was really impressed, especially second half, how Griffin played. I thought Griffin played really well. I thought he was out of gas probably, but in this role where they at least can pull back his snaps a little bit, he presented something that they definitely haven't had on that side since he left.
And I didn't look at his snap total from the first 3 games. I can look it up to see if are they giving him more? It felt like he played more Sunday than the first.
I think he played the same amount of snaps as DJ Wanham did, and so he's the starter, but he's not that impressive.
No, so it's basically 50-50 there. At least it was Sunday. But I mean, that's what we said for him, right? Take some snaps off him and maximize the ones he's on there, and he's still. Hey, when he's at home, he can energize that place with his pass rush, and energize the defense, and he still has it. So, I mean, I think you do have to credit that defense the way they played in the second half. I mean, they made Russell Wilson just look claustrophobic in there. I mean, he was scrambling around trying to get rid of the ball, and I don't know how many throwaways he had just trying to avoid a sack. I mean, it felt like there was like 4 of them. So.
Judd, your mic's muted.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
The dog was barking. It is now perfectly clear why he thought to himself, I might want to trade from here. They've got enough problems there now. I'm not sure that you can address them all. And part of it comes back to one thing. He's paid a ton. It's just like Kirk. Like there comes a point in time where when your salary cap is being eaten up by one guy, it becomes incredible. And that's why that was never like a direct criticism of Kirk. You just have to be such a good quarterback to make that much, because guess what? Now you can't afford a guard, or now you can't afford a tackle. And that makes a big difference.
Well, I think more defensively. I mean, I don't know what they spent on their defense, but they just looked. It looks like a team that's built to say, all right, Russ, save us. And he's been great enough to do that in the past. But as you get older and you're not Houdini anymore. He just didn't look the same guy improvising and freelancing back there that we've seen, where he scrambles around and finds. This time he was scrambling around and throwing it away, or just sliding after a couple yards. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's the great conundrum of the NFL, because if you have a great quarterback, it's going to cost you a lot of money, or an average quarterback is going to cost you money, or above average. Well, so it's taken away from other areas, and you better be right. It puts so much pressure on your front office to be right in drafting and young players, because if you miss, it's just not going to work, because you get so much money tied up in the quarterback.
What's your faith, Chipper, that this pass defense can be improved? Because I think they might be sort of stuck there. I mean, Peterson's not bad, but he's not the player.
He's not getting tested.
He's not the shutdown guy. And Breeland to me is so far a disaster. And Dantzler, who I'd like to see developed and start again, is tweeting after games that he's mad. so because Tomlinson and Pierce and that run defense should improve. I'll be very surprised if they don't. The pass defense, I think might just sort of be what it is. And in this league, in this day and age, that has to concern you a bit.
Yeah. Well, I think when they're at home and that pass rush, or even on the road, because that pass rush should travel too, but at home especially, we see how the crowd noise affects everything, and you could see it was a split second faster Sunday. That obviously is going to help them, but we've seen when the pass rush doesn't get there, I mean, teams are just going to pick on Breeland. Russell Wilson started off. How many times did he go right at him in the first quarter? I mean, it was over and over and over. And so I have to think at some point they're going to switch to Dantzler, right? I mean, but who knows? I mean,
but he didn't help himself.
Dantzler obviously didn't handle that well. The tweet's not going to endear him to the coach.
No. And like, it's like, dude, just wait your turn here. I sort of get what's going on. And then you tweet that. It's like, what are you thinking?
I know. It didn't. Predictably, that thing got deleted within however long. But no, I think I hate the phrase "is what it is," but it sort of feels like what it is, Judd, right now. I mean, I think they're going to have to. It will not surprise me if they have to win a lot of high-scoring games.
Which flies in the face of Zim's entire resume.
It does, and it's not how he wants to play, obviously. But I just don't know the way their back end is constituted that they're going to be able to just hold a lot of offenses down. Because look at the quarterbacks that are coming up and the offenses that are coming up. I don't know that it's realistic to think that they're going to hold teams to 17, 20 points. I mean, I think it's going to be, there's a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Kirk and the offense to score a lot of points, because I just think this defense is not going to be a shutdown defense, because there's just too many unknowns back there. Not unknowns, but just not star players back there on the back end.
What's your prediction Sunday? Like, what do you think? Because I'm really curious to see them, because they're not playing poorly. So I'm on defense, I'm concerned. Offensively, they've looked really good.
Yeah.
But this is going to be, you got Myles Garrett, you got a Cleveland offensive line that's great. And as you said, the run game is great because of that. I do think Baker Mayfield might get rattled by the noise.
Yeah.
Just because we've seen so many quarterbacks like that who are pretty good get rattled by that noise. I think that this is such an interesting test to sort of get a really good gauge on where the Vikings are at right now.
It's interesting. I just looked up before we came out here. Baker Mayfield and Cousins' completion percentages are literally almost identical, down to like 1/100 of a 10th of a point.
Really?
So he only has two touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. They've run for a lot of touchdowns. I mean, they have 8 rushing touchdowns, so that's where they're scoring. I still like the Vikings at home with crowd noise. I do. I just think that I don't think that it rattled Russell Wilson. I just think that it knocked him off his spot to where he didn't have a lot of time to get the ball down the field like he likes to.
It's hard to operate.
Yeah, and so I think that'll have an effect on him, but it really does. Like thing if you've been driving home the run game, if Chubb and Kareem Hunt get going,
yep,
then it's going to be hard, to do what Zimmer wants to do with the pass rush and different things. So, but I still like him at home. I like the way they played. I think they'll gain confidence from that. So I would pick a close win, like a 31-28 type win, something like that. I think it's gonna be high scoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that they're in big trouble against Myles Garrett, who had 4.5 sacks last week against Chicago, and they had 9 sacks against Fields. But here's the thing about that. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks in week 1 against the Titans and came back with 0. So like they have done a very good job game planning. So the scary thing about Garrett though, is he plays both ends and also sometimes scoots inside to the 3 tech. Okay.
Well,
let's see how those guards fare.
He's the guy you have to account for, but maybe it goes back to what we were talking about with Cousins getting the ball out quick too. I mean, if he's playing faster and getting the ball out of his hand faster, then maybe that'll slow, mitigate the pass rush some. But it'll be interesting to see how Mayfield reacts to that crowd noise. I think Stefanski said this week that this will be the loudest game they played, and I'm sure it'll be revved up. I mean, it was loud in there Sunday. That was
great. Yeah,
it was.
It's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I woke up Monday with a still kind of ear ringing in my.
Did you?
Yeah. After one of those games where it's like you sit there listening for a couple hours and your head just rings all night. And
I think that place might be acoustically louder than the Metrodome based on this. We know for a fact that there was a long period of time where they piped in sound, like they turned the speakers towards the opposing sideline and stuff. So the dome was deafening at times, but I think just as far as natural sound, I think that place might have it's certainly as good in my opinion for noise, and it might be more.
Yeah, I remember when it opened the first year, I think the Vikings did a study, like a decibel study, and it was actually a little bit louder. Now, who knows how much of that is artificial? I think it's, they do it just like I assume they measure it like on a third down and how loud, or before they get out. So, no, I think it's as good, if not a little bit louder. And we know, I always go back to that playoff game was at Dallas where, what year was that, where they just could not function at all.
Yeah,
it was so loud. Yeah. So it has effect. So I think that'll help them again and help their pass rush again. And so I would pick them to win a close game.
I think I'm going to go with them as well, because it's at home and because I think that this team. So this is a weird team because it's a team in training camp I thought was in big trouble.
Yeah,
it's a team that started with a really bad loss, but they damn near won. And then they came back with a game in which they should have won and actually went on the road against the Cardinals, who I think are a pretty good team and played well enough to win, and then looked terrible for defensively for part of the Seahawks game and came back. So I think this is going to be a great test. Like, I think that this is going to tell us if this team is as good as a lot of us expected. And 2, if you don't win this game, you're probably teetering in a little bit of trouble here. So I'm going to go close game as well. Probably a 3-point game. I might go 27-24.
Yeah.
But I do think the key is this. I think the key is to throw the Cleveland offense off, because it's going to be hard to operate, and for the run defense, which has another level or 2 to pick it up, because Baker Mayfield's going to complete passes. The one nice thing, if you're the Vikings, is the Browns put Jarvis Landry on the injured reserve, so he's not going to play in this game, but OBJ will, and that's going to be. I mean, he's good, but I think they win 27-24. Dex, how about you?
I think it's going to be a big time shootout. I think both these they're 2 top 5 offenses in the league. I'm not as big on Baker, but I also don't think he's a train wreck by any means. I know he's been conservative, and they've kind of reined him in a little bit, and Kevin Stefanski deserves a lot of credit. If this run defense does not wake up, and my God, you got the toughest test possibly all season long this year against Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and they like to use both their backs, and this deep run defense has still been a sieve, even with Tomlinson and Michael Pierce backed and plugged in on the defensive line. But I think the Vikings do win, but it's like 35-31. Like, I think it's going to be an insane shootout and no defense involved. Defense optional in this one.
I think the Browns secondary, though, one of their best cornerbacks is out, but the Browns secondary pass defense is, I think, 5th or tied for 5th. So, like, passing is not going to be as simple. And if Garrett gets pressure, I don't want to sell the Browns defense short. And my God, if the Vikings don't start to make strides, then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
that's going to be a problem.
And I'm curious to see, Judd, if the offensive line can continue to play what we've seen the last 2 weeks, because they have not been talked about, which is a good thing, right? I mean, I thought they were good, really good first half Arizona, not as great second half, but they're still good. I thought they were really good Sunday. And so if they can continue that, I think this offense will hum along. I think, again, that's the key that could sabotage the offense, that offensive line. But if we don't talk about them, and we haven't talked about them really at all in this, when typically that's one of the first things we bring up. If we don't talk about them, I think that offense is going to score a lot of points.
The guards are holding up, which is so important.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, we were subjected to a season of Dakota Dozier, which is ridiculous. and I'm not saying that Cleveland on the left side and Udo on the right side are perfect, but they're good enough. And that's why Dakota Dozier was so maddening, because it's like, what are you doing? He's not good enough to play. These guys are good enough to play. And after week 1, I don't know if it was pride or they've schemed differently, but it feels like Bradbury, it's not nearly as obvious how bad it was as it was in week 1 and previously throughout his career.
Yeah, I mean, week 1, it just felt like every pass play he was getting shoved back into Cousins' face, and I haven't really noticed that. And that's not to say they haven't given up any pressures or sacks or anything like that, but it just feels like they've done their part to help them win versus undermine the offense. And it's a big deal. Well, that's everything. It's what we've talked about for however many years. And so let's see if that continues. And maybe they figured something out schematically. Maybe they figured something out just physically. I don't know. But it's been pretty good the last 2 weeks.
Well, Chip Scoggins, I'll tell you this before we go. Win or lose, you know how you can enjoy a Vikings game? I've got right here for those of you watching on YouTube. That's right, Chip. In fact, I will hand you this right now through the screen. A Surly Furious IPA, the best beer in town. I'm telling you right now. All the Surlys are good, but Furious, a personal favorite of not just Judd Zolgad's, but Chip Scoggins as well. Don't settle. Get Surly. Sound good, Chip?
All right, brother. I'm going to have one tonight.
Safe travels to West Lafayette. I hope you come back with a win, because the last time I saw
and some passing yards.
It was a terrible football game, but nonetheless, at least the Vikings came back and won on Sunday. Talk to you later.
See you, brother.